Welcome back to Continental Club, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm joined by the Samba-wearing Critchley Doogie.
You know it.
And Patrick Van Straten, the old guard.
Now.
Joe Tomlinson has gone to a wedding.
Yes, another wedding.
For once. Invited to that one.
And Chris is off shooting. But without
with
further
the big boys
ado,
of Bournemouth.
now we've got that out of the way.
Moving up in the world.
We're going to our first question, which has come from Gunners Mazout 78, and they've asked, what do you think of Aaron Ramsey potentially moving to Syria, and how will he be remembered by Arsenal fans? And that's because the London Evening Standard are reporting that both AC and Juventus are monitoring Ramsey's contract situation at Arsenal. The Gunners have been unable to reach conditions with Ramsey and have now pulled out of a potential deal. His current contract runs out in June 2019, which means he can leave on a free or be sold this January. Pate, you're the resident Arsenal fan. How are you feeling about this? What about the whole thing of how will he be remembered at Arsenal as well? Because he had that season where he was very good, but he's also had many seasons where he hasn't been so good.
Yeah, I think actually he'll be remembered a little bit more favourably than he probably should be. Like this summer, I'd say a sort of vocal minority of Arsenal fans said he needs to be sold.
Yeah.
Like the amount of money he was asking for to stay, which was going to be 200k plus, is a lot for a club of Arsenal's size. And he's not fit enough to do it. Like when he plays, he's good, though he hasn't been great, I think, so far this season. When he plays, he's good, but he very rarely sees out a whole season. You know, he normally will kind of play 5 or 6 games, then have a knee or a thigh problem, and then sit out a few.
Games, yeah.
And it's really frustrating. Plus, I think the thing about Ramsey is he's actually a real kind of tactical problem. Like he's really good at moving off the ball in the final third. He's reasonably creative. He's good at getting into goal-scoring positions, but he doesn't do very much defensive work. And what he really wants to do is play as a 10 in a quite defensive system. I think like if you're like early Mourinho and you want a guy who's going to be contributing to the forward line but will do more defensive work than say Ozil, Ramsey's your guy.
Okay.
But at Arsenal need a more conventional box-to-box midfielder who's going to do a bit of both. Ramsey doesn't do the defensive side of the ball. He's not particularly rangy. He's not a great dribbler. So what he's good at is supplementing the attack. Now, the frustrating thing is he clearly should have been sold in the summer. Like a bunch of us at the time said, look, he's asking for too much money to stay, so you don't want to agree a new deal with him. You could probably get 40 to 50 mil for him now because he's homegrown.
Still not too bad.
If you're not worried about selling him to a rival club, which I don't think you should be. He's 27. He's frequently injured. I don't think that he really drastically improves any of the big clubs. I'd be happy to sell him to any of them.
What club do you think would fit in most?
I actually thought, you know, on the topic of Mourinho, I think he would have been good in a sort of 10 role at United, but I think Pogba's better at playing that hybrid midfield attacker role. At points last season, if Chelsea had kept Conte, there were points last season where I thought you saw Bakayoko running into the penalty area, 100%. But he didn't know what to do when he got there. Ramsey would be great
lost,
at that.
wasn't he?
And when you think about Sarri coming in as well, Hamsik, that role, you know, getting forward from midfield, you could see Ramsey doing it. However, with their midfield signings,
yeah, he'd come off the bench, I suppose, in a few games.
You know, I think it's quite difficult. You know, Dele Alli is kind of like him at Spurs. Liverpool certainly don't need him, but I mean, I'm sure they'd take him. So I think that a move to Serie A actually makes a lot of sense, especially if, say, Lazio were to sell Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. He's a guy who is a hybrid midfielder, sort of second striker. Ramsey could play that role quite well. So if they sold Milinkovic-Savic for, say, 100 mil and brought in Ramsey for nothing, I don't think they'd lose a great deal of quality in their team. And in return, they'd get an awful lot of money to spend around the squad.
True. Doogie, how likely do you think it is that he'll move to Syria? I can't even think of the last Englishman to do so.
Yeah, no, it would be a bold move.
Ravel Morrison,
And I hope he does. I hope he goes and rots at AC Milan, because I've actually met Aaron Ramsey, and he's the biggest I've ever met in football by distance.
Oh my Lord.
I was working at the 2014 Ryder Cup, and I was serving cooked breakfast, and Aaron Ramsey came in with Kenny Miller, the Rangers Celtic striker that keeps on swapping between the two. And I tried to have a chat with Aaron Ramsey, asked him how he was. He was monosyllabic. I was like, how's your knee at the moment, Mr. Ramsey? He was like, fine. I was like, enjoy your day. Gave him his breakfast, and he didn't say thank you. So me being the petty guy that I am, he's always got a black mark against his name. But I think he's done really well at Arsenal. I mean, they brought him in for 4.8 million as an 18-year-old, amid interest from Man United at the time. And he scored winning goals in 2 FA Cup finals. He's got close to 60 goals in about 350 appearances, which is a pretty good return. But yeah, I think moving to Serie A, all jokes aside about his personality, would be, a bold move for him and one that I'd like to see. I think AC Milan could use a player like him. I don't really see he'd naturally be a starter at Juventus over, Pjanic or even Matuidi. And he's not good when he's asked to sit in a 2. So I don't really see him having a starting role at Juventus. So that sort of just carries on in the current scenario for him. But AC Milan, I mean, they got Bakayoko at the moment, Bonaventura, Kessié, Montalivo's quite old. Like none of these, I think he'd be an improvement on pretty much every one of these. And AC Milan really lacked a goal-scoring midfielder last year, and lacked goals in general last year. I think Catrone and Andre Silva were the only people to get over 10 goals, and Suso chips in with quite a few from out wide. So a goal-scoring midfielder for them would be a really good idea.
But that's slightly a function of their style, though. They're quite defensive under Gattuso. And I think Kessié, when you look at that season at Atalanta that got him his move to Milan, he was contributing to a ton of goals and assists from deep midfield. He's starting to show some form again.
Yeah, I saw him a couple of highlights. He seems to be pushing up a bit more this season.
Yeah, so you kind of think, well, maybe Kessié can do that, and he's younger and his injury record is better. I think at Juve, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's going to walk into their first team, but I think Matuidi actually has gone through quite an evolution there. Matuidi arrived as a guy who would play in a midfield 3 but end up almost playing as a winger, when Cavani would move him from the left in the Ibrahimovic days. He was reasonably fast then, obviously could pull out wide because he was left-footed, and he didn't do a huge amount of defensive work, but he was quite creative and he was good at moving off the ball in the attack to create space. I think that Ramsey could potentially do that because now Matuidi puts up huge defensive numbers at Juve. So I think that actually Italian football would work really well for him, because if you get a coach who's going to take him and say, you are not going to play unless I see this from you. He's kind of been coddled at Arsenal because Wenger was like, oh well, he's great at getting forward, so I guess we'll just let him do that, and didn't really cover for him defensively. Emery said he's going to be the centre of my project at Arsenal.
That's why I think he'll be quite disappointed with this, how this has turned out.
Yeah, but
because what we're reading is that Arsenal are the ones that have pulled out of this deal, so something must have gone seriously wrong in negotiations.
I think just the cost. I think it will be the cost, and now Gazidis is leaving. Who knows? Maybe somebody else is saying that, this is not a cost that we can bear if this decision is now being made by Sven Mislintat. But in that case, it's weird that they're making this decision a month and a half into the season. So just selling him in the summer.
It just seems like an exact repeat of the Alexis Sanchez situation last year.
It's moronic.
You'd think you'd learn from that. I mean, ultimately, Alexis Sanchez hasn't looked great since he joined Arsenal, but they missed out on £50-60 million.
Yeah.
And they're doing exactly the same thing with Aaron Ramsey, admittedly for a bit less money.
And there's a hidden cost with Ozil as well, right?
Yeah.
Like Arsenal are paying Ozil like $350k a week. But pushing Ramsey forward in that advanced role means Ozil has to pull out wide. So it means you're not getting the best out of a guy who is by far your highest earner. And I really don't understand that. Like, who's better at being a number 10 than Aaron Ramsey? Mesut Ozil. You know who's better at being a defensive midfielder than Ramsey? Torreira. Who's better at passing it into the final third? Xhaka. Even Mkhitaryan, I think, could actually play a more conventional box-to-box role than Ramsey could to a potentially higher standard. So I think sell Ramsey in January if you can, buy in a conventional box-to-box midfielder and a winger, and you will actually improve the squad and improve the team's sort of tactical flexibility.
I saw this week when I was writing Transfer Talk that you guys have been quite heavily linked with Ismail Assar, the Rennes winger, and Inter Milan are looking at him as well. He'd be quite an interesting addition. He's only 20 though, so he wouldn't necessarily be a guaranteed starter, but he scored a banging goal against a Czech side in the Europa League. In midweek, like a really stunning volley. Go check it out if you haven't seen it already. So he could be an interesting addition. Yeah.
I was going to say, with Ramsey, do you think his ego would be too big to drop down from a top 6 club?
What, and stay in the Premier League?
Yeah, and stay in the Premier League. Say like a Wolves came in for him or something like that, and obviously they've got the money for it.
But then
in fairness, I do think he's better than that.
Yeah, Wolves' system as well, he wouldn't work in Wolves' system because they play 3-4-3. They don't really have space for a number 10. And Leicester City don't need a 10 with Maddison there, but doing really well. Everton have got an abundance of number 10s. I'm trying to think of any other Premier League club that would sort of satisfy him. West Ham don't play that system anymore.
I mean, he'd be a good backup to someone like Dele Alli at Spurs, but he's not better than Ali. I mean, well, he's got other abilities that Ali doesn't have, but Ali is overall a much better player. But that's the player who he's kind of a bit more similar to in the past. Actually, Ali's changed a bit this season. but he doesn't do conventional midfield things. Like, he is a guy who wants to get into the final third and score goals, even though historically he's actually not a great finisher. So I don't really know what a club is who needs that kind of guy. I mean, Italian clubs, it seems to me like they use their midfielders much more kind of cleverly and in various kind of different systems, and it improves.
And players
them.
tend to age much better out there as well.
Yeah.
Especially AC Milan and Juventus, they've got two fantastic medical departments. You can play until 33, 34.
A very fair point.
So, no, we'll see.
Feels very Juve.
Yeah, well, but what do you guys think at home? Where will Aaron Ramsey end up next season, or in January? Or should he just stay at Arsenal? Let us know in the comments below. We now move on to our big match previews this weekend, and we start in La Liga, and it is a big one. Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid. Now, Los Blancos have had a decent start to La Liga, winning 4 of their 5 La Liga games and beating Roma 3-0 in the Champions League. However, last Wednesday, they lost 3-0 to Sevilla.
Shambolic performance.
It was a very surprising moment, and if you actually look on the live stream, we were all shocked. But Atletico versus Real, how do you think they're going to do, Doogie? Who do you think is going to come out on top? Because it's at the Bernabeu.
Well, it's been an interesting start to the season for Real Madrid. I did not see that 3-0 battering coming at all from Sevilla, but it was a really poor performance, particularly defensively. They conceded 3 first-half goals. Marcelo gave the ball away for the opener. The entire backline played on Ben Yedder for the third. They just looked at 6s and 7s, which is weird because I think this season they've actually looked quite cohesive. And Lopetegui, I wasn't sort of overwhelmed with his appointment this summer. I mean, he hasn't coached a major club. He's only taken charge of 2 years at Porto, and they didn't win a title at either year. But he seems to have introduced a more sort of possession-based style of play. Their possession stats, average possession per game's gone up from something like 58% to 64%. He seems to have got the best out of Bale, Benzema, Asensio. But on Wednesday, they were just toothless. They had 21 shots, but only got 3 on target. Bale and Asensio had Benzema and Asensio had 1 shot between them. Bale had 8. But Bale is he's really, really come into his own this season. 3 goals, 2 assists so far. Looking incredibly happy in that Real Madrid lineup, and they're sort of interchanging those attacking positions a lot more. They've sort of moved away from the counter-attack and purely feeding Cristiano Ronaldo for his 8 shots a game. But Bale's doing a top job. He's 4.8 shots per game, 2 assists, 3 goals, looking really strong. And Atletico, it was a mixed start to the season, but having said all that, they're only, I think, 2 or 3 points behind now, with Barcelona and Real Madrid both losing in midweek. Lamar's looks a bit better in recent weeks. He scored 1 goal and forced another against Getafe last weekend. One of them was like a thumping 30-yard strike, which came back off the bar, hit the goalkeeper, and went in. The only worrying thing for Atletico is Diego Costa. He's not looked that strong at the start of the season.
No, I've seen. I'm not seeing full games, but I've seen highlights between him and Griezmann. I felt this season that partnership it looks like it's grown quite a lot.
Their link-up's been really good, but he's almost sacrificing his own play a lot more for Griezmann this year, which is probably maybe part of Simeone's tactics. But he's only taking 1.2 shots per game, which is only 0.2 more than Jose Jimenez, who's their centre back. So slightly worrying for Atletico, but I think this will be a really tight game. And Real Madrid rarely lose 2 games in a row in La Liga. I think they haven't done that since November 2015, so it's been a long, long time. So I expect them to bounce back this weekend.
What are your thoughts on the game, Pato? More so Atletico Madrid. How do you think they're going to do in general this season as well? They spent 135 million euros in the summer and brought in the likes of Lamar and Rodri. How do you think they're doing?
Those guys are still bedding in. I mean, Rodri, I think, only started 1 of their first 4 games when their form was pretty ropey. 1 win from those games. But after them being written off a few weeks ago, when they were 5 points behind Barca and Real, it's now much tighter again. They're on 11 points, I think. Barca and Real on 13 apiece. So they're right back in the hunt. And if they were to win this game, then suddenly they start to look like challengers for second. Overall, I do think this is probably a battle for second place. I think Barcelona look quite a bit more impressive than both of these sides so far this season. They've certainly got a deeper squad in attack than Real, and Atleti aren't quite at the races yet. But Atletico are always really hard to beat away from home. They're extremely difficult. The interesting thing is they tried to open up a little bit more this season. Like playing Lamar is quite an attacking move, and playing Correa as well. What we've seen them do, what they always did was play central midfielders as wingers. They play Saul there or they play Koke there. and those guys would pinch inside, and then the attackers would sort of split wide. So they never really kind of
left themselves open.
Yeah, and they didn't have too many out-and-out attackers on the field. There would only be really 2, and 4 central midfielders. Whereas this season, obviously trying to bring Lamar in is intentionally trying to make them a more attacking side. And so, I don't know, I expect them to be a bit more kind of vintage Atleti in this game. But it's shown that Real Madrid do have a soft underbelly if you can get to it. You know, Sevilla have grown tactically, bringing in Pablo Machin. So I think that, I don't know, I kind of fancy them to get something out of it, but I'm not sure I'd fancy them to get a win.
I feel, and out of no opinion, just the old Jellab feeling, the gut feeling, a 3-2 victory for Atletico Madrid.
3-2?
Yeah.
It's quite rare for Atleti to concede.
I'm going to say 3-2.
Wow.
There you go. Gareth Bale with 2.
He's going for it.
What about you? What are your score predictions? Do you first?
There's been a lot of draws in this fixture recently. I think there's been 4 of the last 6. I wouldn't be surprised with a score draw. I think it might be 1-1. Okay. Not too exciting. I think it will be a lot tighter than people are expecting. 1-1.
Yeah,
1-1
as well.
I think these are going to be 2 kind of pressing sides, like probably turning the game into mud, really.
Yeah, I do think that Barcelona is going to run away with the league as well.
Probably.
The way Arthur's already fit into the squad so well, it's just
outrageous.
Madly impressive.
Coutinho looks great as well this year as well.
Let's go back to Serie A then. Juve faced Napoli as well on Saturday at 5 o'clock, a bit earlier. It's first versus second. Juve are just 3 points ahead. Now, let's go to you, Pato, first. How do you think it's going to go? Because I'm really interested to see how Napoli are going to do this season, considering obviously the very attractive football they were playing with Sarri last season. Now they've got Ancelotti, who, as we said earlier before the cameras are rolling, that they're still attacking, but not as, say, possession-based as they were under Sarri, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Sarri's an extremist when it comes to possession. I mean, like Chelsea so far this season have had getting on for, I think somewhere around 65% possession.
It's lovely. I've never seen a play such good football.
It's obscene how much of the ball they have, which is why you're seeing people like N'Golo Kante having really low tackle numbers relative to what they've had in the past. They just have the ball all the time, so there's no need to do any defensive work really. I think that Allegri is a better head-to-head manager than Ancelotti, and I think that Napoli, while still looking good, are taking a step backwards. Yeah. They got pumped by Samp. They lost 3-0 to them earlier in the season. I think it was 3-0. And this is the thing about Sarri. Sarri managed to create a system, partially because they did have the ball all the time, where despite being very attacking, they were not really defensively suspect. They've got guys who can cover a lot of ground in defence. And I don't know. I think the loss of Jorginho is not as much of an issue for Ancelotti as it would have been if Sarri had stayed there. Mm-hmm. He really implements that style, whereas Sarri's playing a much more normal kind of midfield. But I don't know, Juve have just been getting the job done so far this season. Like, while their headline numbers look good, like their shots and shots against numbers, shots have gone up from about 14 a game to 21, and that's really the Ronaldo effect. Shots against have stayed pretty stable around kind of 8 a game, which is super elite. I think that they've been just kind of, I don't know, I don't think they've been amazing, to be honest with you. Except for those numbers. When you look at expected goals, I think they've been edging a lot of matches without being terribly impressive.
They've only won by a 2-goal margin once.
Yeah.
That was in their opening game.
Though they have won the last 3 games 2-0 apiece. But obviously those are outside the league, except for maybe the Frosinone game.
I think Frosinone, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe they're starting to come into form, and Ronaldo is maybe starting to get going, though at the same time, like, he doesn't quite look like Real Madrid Ronaldo.
Yeah. But I think that's always going to happen, considering how long he spent at Real Madrid, and now he's on new turf, he's in a new country. I don't think he's done what we've expected him to do. I don't think we expect him to score a stupid amount of goals straight away. I think that will eventually happen. Doogie, how are you feeling about this game, Napoli versus Juve?
I, a bit like Pato, haven't been blown away by Juventus so far this season. I've also been quite surprised with the way Allegri's lining up the side, in the lack of minutes that he's giving to Dybala, that Mandzukic is playing centrally, Ronaldo's sort of playing on the left, and Bernardeschi, who's actually started the season really well on the right. I don't think this will be, again, a thriller. Napoli won this game 1-0 away from home last year, but then lost the home leg when they were at home 1-0 as well. Napoli have been slightly mixed this year, but some of their key men have really come to the fore as well. Lorenzo Insigne's scored 5 and assisted 1 in 6 games.
That's crazy.
Alexander Milik, who was injured for much of last season, he started 3 games already when he only started 5 or 6 in the whole of last season. And Dries Mertens has looked slightly off colour. I don't know whether that's just as a result of Belgium going quite far in the World Cup, although I don't think he didn't start every game for Belgium. He was mainly an impact sub. There's a few issues. I mean, they're doing well, Napoli, but they haven't looked fantastic either. I mean, they came back from a goal down against Lazio in their opening game. They came back from 2 down against AC Milan in their second. And they're sort of just a bit like Juve, sort of getting the job done at the moment. But this is what you need to do. New manager, back in his own country, hasn't managed in Serie A for a while, and they're getting the job done without looking too sort of all-conquering or definitely as free-flowing as they were last year, which is to be expected. The interesting thing I read about Sarri's tactics this year, it's actually nothing to do with this game, but Chelsea are playing 10 metres further up the pitch than they were last year. And also they're engaging with the opposition on average 5 passes earlier than last year as well. So just a completely style shift under Sarri. And I imagine that you must be in dreamland at the moment.
I can't think of a we play better football than we do right now, and it's so attractive to watch, especially like when I've actually properly taken football seriously. It's weird because last season all I wanted was us to play really good football, and I was more than happy to sacrifice us not getting the Champions League, not getting winning the trophies at all. And we won the FA Cup, so that was nice. But now under Sarri, it's mental. It feels weird when we watch us play. And the crazier thing about this is like, it's only been like 2 months. Imagine what happens after a year when he gets a couple more signings.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, I'm still a bit worried about our defence. Like the game against Arsenal, there's a 20-minute spell in the first half where like Marcos Alonso just decided not to defend, and when he attacks, he's fantastic. Arguably the best attacking left back, but when he defends, it's a little bit more suspect. It's very worrying. I actually saw something on Twitter where it was like, why don't you just play Marcos Alonso up front? And I actually feel like, you know what?
He's taking more shots a game than that. He's taking more shots than Morata and Giroud.
Oh well, Morata. That's a whole other.
He's a problem, Marcos Alonso.
Yeah, I feel so as well. But I feel maybe Emerson, by January, might be our starting left back.
Emerson played quite well in midweek, didn't he?
He did play quite well, which kind of surprised me. He's one of our better players, especially there was a period in that game where we were a bit suspect with our second string squad.
I also, in the article that I read on the BBC this morning, Sarri's apparently completely changed the atmosphere around the training ground. He's much more relaxed than Conte was. He's reintroduced like ketchup and butter and salt at dinner, which you'd expect from a man that smokes 80 cigarettes a day. He's got quite a more relaxed attitude to diet. And he also is very happy with the club running their transfer dealings, which was Conte's big issues. So it looks all pretty rosy.
It's just, we're seeing the best out of Eden Hazard. Like Kovacic is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like surprise, if you give him game time, he'll play really well. It's really nice. Like Kante must be getting nosebleeds how far up the pitch he is at times. It's ridiculous. But everyone's having a good time apart from one player, Morata. Who,
it's almost like the final piece of the
jigsaw.
The
problem is, like Giroud, like obviously it's nothing to do with the game we're talking about, but whilst we're talking about it, let's carry on. Giroud has come out and said, and he's more than happy to like play for Hazard, whereas Morata essentially wants to play for himself, which is absolutely fine. So he wants to score the goals. He wants to be the main man. However, in this Sarri system, it seems Eden Hazard is that guy, and unless maybe Morata becomes a bit more like Giroud and is willing to play a lot more with Hazard, the 1-2s, the layoffs for Hazard, I don't know whether he'll be here by come end of January. I think the really cool thing, like the only one concern I maybe have with Hazard is his decision making in front of goal. He is very unselfish. There's a thing with West Ham where he was basically through on goal. All he had to do was dink the keeper, but instead he does a back heel for Morata. And maybe that's one thing he has to improve on, is become a bit more selfish. But
going back to
Chelsea, back to Napoli.
Going back to this game, lads, what's the predictions? What do we think?
Well, it's at Juventus, isn't it?
Yeah, let's just be honest. Juve again, 2-1, I'll say. Ronaldo 1, Bonucci the second.
Nice.
Weird
Corner.
prediction.
I like going for the weird ones. We predict corner Bonucci, 70.
Well, I mean, if it's right, you'll look like
Exactly.
a genius.
And
Yeah.
if it's not, I
Missed
look
exact.
like a deal, which happens. a lot.
Yeah. I think 2-0 Juve.
Yeah.
I think
don't-
this should be quite straightforward.
I think Juve are going to walk the league, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That's the whole reason they brought in Ronaldo.
Like, given that we say they're not playing terribly well and they've won 6 from 6, I mean,
Exactly.
in the last couple of seasons, they've had some pretty ropey starts to the campaign and have had to kind of claw it back. And they've managed to do it both times this year. The fact that they're already waltzing away with it makes me think that by March, they'll be like 20 points ahead.
What about you, Diggy, mate?
I'll go both teams to score. I think 2-1 Juve.
Yeah.
But
But what do you guys think? Vote in the poll above and let us know. Will Juve win, Napoli win, or will it be a draw? Yeah.
Those are the 3 possibilities.
So that's the end of Continental Club for this week. Thank you for your questions. If you'd like to submit some more for next week, put them in the comments below. Make sure you're hitting us up on Twitter and Instagram. There's
my
a
new Instagram
giveaway
account.
on FIFA going on over there. So
Where's my copy? of
I'll
FIFA?
try and sort you one, mate.
Thank you.
What are you guys doing this weekend, by the way?
Jesus Christ.
Do you
I
get-
am going back to Scotland. My mum is
course
moving
you
into
are.
a new house.
You go to Scotland 3 times a month.
That is not true.
What's wrong with that?
And I am
Scotland's
also
delightful.
from there.
Yeah, but
Scotland's so nice. How often
is
do you
it?
go back to Crawley?
again, once a month. Big up.
That's
big up
way
FIFA.
too much to go to
Yeah,
Crawley.
It really is. It really is. What about you, Pat? What are you doing this weekend?
I don't know, like avoiding you guys. I'm not on the football social, but you should check out the football
Yes.
social, which is
Plugs.
tomorrow. I don't remember the 3 o'clock kickoffs actually. Does anyone know any of them?
There's some good ones, I'll tell you that, and they involve the Premier League.
Quality.
For those of you that want to know, I'm going to probably play FIFA this week.
There we go.
Great.
I'll try and sort everyone out a copy.
Also-
I'm
So
trying
you've got
really
a
hard.
copy?
Not yet, but I'm sorting myself out and then I'm getting everyone else one.
Also,
Jesus.
make sure you come back tomorrow. I'm taking on Hamill in Stat Wars, the league. 70% of you thought Hamill was going to win on Twitter, so
That's
come back.
outrageous.
Come back and see what happens.
That's a liberty, Diggy.
I was quite offended.
Yeah, how dare they?
Patrick, say goodbye to the lovely people at home.
Bye.